Steelers Nation. Welcome back to the Kold Steel Podcast. I am your host, Kold Steel, and this is episode 4. And today we're going to have an amazing discussion which surrounds rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett. And the biggest question going into training camp this season is not Ben Roethlisberger. As you guys know, he has retired. And now the Steelers are in a position where for the first time in a long time, they have a quarterback battle. And it's more than likely going to be between Kenny Pickett and, of course, Mitchell Trubisky. Now, Mason Rudolph is still a part of this roster, but I'm going to be getting into that later as to why I don't think he's going to be considered as a starting quarterback for this team. And I think that's kind of obvious. And I would even argue that majority of Steelers Nation would like to see Mason Rudolph traded at this point. And this might shock a lot because I've been a defender of Mason Rudolph in past. I am now on that train, mainly because this guy has not been contributing to the quarterback position in ways that Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett have been. But yeah, we're going to talk about whether or not Kenny Pickett should or could be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2022. And I have some other things that I want to discuss in regards to Kenny Pickett that are not related to that specifically. Before we get into today's discussion, I want to quickly remind you guys to not only hit that like and subscribe button here on YouTube if you're watching here on YouTube, but also follow me on social media at Kold Steel 412. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and even now you can find me on TikTok where I'm uploading clips from this podcast. So if you guys want to take a moment and follow me on those platforms, I would greatly appreciate it. And that said, let's get right into this topic, which we need to start with a Penn Live article because I know this is going to be circulating throughout this week. Published June 13th, 2022, this morning, which is Monday. What's keeping Kenny Pickett from signing with the Steelers? Now, of course, this is honestly a non-story. However, it is the offseason, and topics are very dry and hard to come by. And of course, this is now going to be discussed, even if it is just for this week. So for those who are wondering, why hasn't Kenny Pickett signed his contract? There is a very simple answer to this. And according to Boston Globe, they say, with Pickett, who will sign a 4-year deal worth $14 million fully guaranteed. Let's start there. For those who are wondering, what is the details behind Kenny Pickett's contract? Now you know. $14 million, 4 years, fully guaranteed. There's really only one issue possible, the structure of the payments. It is really just that simple. When it comes to the contract for Kenny Pickett, who is one of 2 unsigned first-round picks from this year's draft, it really does boil down to a contract format. Kenny Pickett is looking for the payments to be structured in a way that makes sense for him and, of course, his agent. And it would go on to say, however, the Steelers have never agreed to that structure for a first-round pick. So that's really what it's going to boil down to as to why Kenny Pickett has yet to sign that contract. And you better believe that will be getting taken care of in the very near future. So again, non-story, but it is a new story that popped out today. And considering I was doing a video on Kenny Pickett, it makes sense to cover it. But let's get into the discussion on whether or not Kenny Pickett should be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And honestly, it's going to have to start with something that caught my eye the other day. We went live on Saturday. And this really caught my attention. Quarterback order, and this is from day one of minicamp, which was just a week ago. An article on Behind the Steel Curtain says, how will the Steelers, mainly Matt Canada and Mike Tomlin, somehow manipulate a three-man quarterback competition this offseason? Well, that has yet to be seen this early in the process. But Matt Canada spoke with media and said Tomlin has made a very transparent order, which should be the following: Trubisky, Rudolph, and last but not least, Kenny Pickett. This form, Will Graves of the Associate Press, is where this came from. But this was said by Matt Canada, which I find interesting. Is not that there was a list, it's that Rudolph was listed second on this list. Now, I understand that when it comes to Mason Rudolph, considering the fact that he's already been a part of the team, he's already been sitting behind Ben Roethlisberger, the natural reaction to Mason Rudolph is he should at the very least be the backup quarterback, which is what he was with Ben Roethlisberger on the roster. But here's why I disagree with this list. And I honestly don't think it's going to stay this way. I know it sounds crazy that a fan is going to sit here and disagree with the coaches, but I truly think this is just for the media, and there's not any true truth to this whatsoever. Because I'm telling you now, Kenny Pickett is going to end up beating out Mason Rudolph. Mainly because, and it's not the first time, since Mitchell Trubisky has came through those doors, he himself, even before we selected Kenny Pickett, which the team did inform, according to a report, they did inform Mitchell Trubisky that they were potentially looking to draft a quarterback. And I think anyone that had paid attention to the lead up to the draft, they understood that that was going to happen. But Trubisky was already showcasing those leadership skills, practicing with certain players on the roster, and even going down to Florida to partake in those things. But Mason Rudolph was never included in that, probably in what I think, mainly due to the fact that he wanted nothing to do with that. And the same thing is happening now as Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett are planning on getting together very soon here, leading up to training camp. In fact, I think they're going to be going down to Florida to work out together and continue to try to develop and build, learn the playbook, and just get prepared for the upcoming season. Mason Rudolph is doing his own thing in a separate way. And I find it a little, not necessarily disturbing, but I find it a little hard to believe that Mason Rudolph is going to be the backup quarterback when he's not showcasing any kind of leadership and he's not showcasing any kind of connection with the other players on this roster, specifically the offense, guys like Deontay Johnson or even the rookies. So Trubisky right now currently is leading that pack when it comes to who we should consider for week one. But that really is going to boil down to how he performs on the field. So I do believe going into week one, Mitchell Trubisky will be the starting quarterback for the Steelers unless something happens between training camp and then, of course, the preseason. But in the long run, if Mitchell Trubisky does not perform well on the field in real games when it matters the most, you better believe Kenny Pickett is going to get an opportunity. Now, of course, can Mason Rudolph be in that position that I'm referring to right now? Yes, because again, we live in a world where anything is possible. And he himself, even though right now I don't feel like he's showcasing leadership skills, and I don't think he's bonding with the team like the other two guys. Not to mention, we just saw news that Kenny Pickett is contributing to the Pittsburgh community already, which he was doing prior to being drafted by the Steelers. But even now, as a Pittsburgh Steeler, he's continuing that. So there's a lot of great news that is surrounding Kenny Pickett and makes him much more likable. But I want to show you guys something else that is extremely interesting when it comes to this topic, and that is Diontae Johnson. It says Diontae Johnson on how different it is without Ben Roethlisberger around the Steelers. It will be difficult, to say the least, not seeing number 7 under center in the black and gold. Now, this kind of goes with Trubisky. And again, there's that order that we saw: Trubisky, Rudolph, Pickett, and then, of course, Kun. I'm going to say Kun for short because I am terrible at pronouncing names. Anyone that's been a fan of the channel long enough, they know that. For players like George Pickens, Calvin Austin III, and Connor Hayward, they won't notice a difference in this season. But for guys like Diontae Johnson, Chase Claypool, and even Pat Freiermuth, there is a big change now because Ben is gone. And it says here, mainly Mitchell Trubisky in regards to developing a connection with members of the offense. And here's what Diontae Johnson had to say about Mitchell Trubisky. I am really picking Mitch's brain, trying to get that relationship with him, Johnson said. This is what is most exciting to me. Taking it day at a time. When we are in practice, if a ball is coming my way, whatever play it is, just show that communication that we do have. I want the show it's going to continue to grow for everybody. We're cool friends right now. He's a cool dude. It's good. Now, it's no secret Diontae Johnson is considered by many of us as our number 1 receiver. Now, whether or not Diontae Johnson's contract gets figured out this year, I don't know. That's a topic for another episode. But what it does show is this guy and Mitchell Trubisky are building a relationship that Mason Rudolph has been unable to do. Now, whether or not we get news that he's working out with Kenny Pickett, we'll have to wait and see. But one thing is for sure. Mitchell Trubisky will be starting this year as the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers based on whether or not he does well throughout the training camp and as well as preseason, and whether or not Trubisky will remain the starter is yet to be seen. But I will tell you this, and I will close this topic off with this. Kenny Pickett was drafted in the first round. The Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett after, that's the key word, after signing Mitchell Trubisky. The Steelers aren't signing a quarterback in the first round as a depth piece. I cannot be convinced otherwise. A second round and later, you can make that argument. But a first round pick, when the Steelers needed defensive line, and they could have even went offensive line, hell, they could have went any other position. They go quarterback in the first round, you better believe that they believe in Kenny Pickett, and they believe that this guy can be the starting quarterback in the near future. So that is what I think about Kenny Pickett in regards to whether or not he can be the starting quarterback. Before we get on out of here, this is a short episode. I want to let you guys know that Friday's episode is probably going to be the longest episode we've done. And that is because this Friday, episode 5, I'm going to be discussing free agents that the Steelers can sign and bring in on this current roster between now, training camp, and even preseason that will help improve the team to allow us or give us the opportunity to take the AFC North and maybe even get to the playoffs and further along the line there. I am Kold Steel. Thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, a quick reminder, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We're back on Odyssey. You guys can follow me on odyssey.com/@KoldSteel. I had to start a new channel over there. And I'll leave the link down in the description for you guys so you guys get quick access to the new channel because we will be uploading content over there. In fact, at some point this week, probably Wednesday, I'm going to be doing a video that's not Steelers related. It's going to be related to YouTube, the platform, and some of the concerns that I have with this platform overall. And it'll definitely be a good one. So tune into that when it gets dropped. But until then, guys, Steelers Nation, I'm Kold Steel. Go Steelers. And I'll see you guys in the next one.